Welcome to Real Life, Real Leaders. I'm Bonnie Hageman, your host, and today we have a special guest, Wendy Mann. Wendy is the CEO of the Crew Network, which we will talk about, and also a new friend of mine. We met last summer, and I went to speak to her group, and we became fast friends. So I'm super excited to have her on the program. Welcome, Wendy.
Thanks, Bonnie. So good to be here.
So great to have you. So first of all, just tell us, what is Crew Network?
Crew Network stands for Commercial Real Estate Women Network, and it is an organization that is dedicated to transforming the commercial real estate industry by advancing women. And we do that through 4 pillars: our robust business network that is both in person and online platform, as well as our leadership skills development, preparing women to be poised for those opportunities for promotion when they come along. Our research, which we are the only organization in the real estate community that is benchmarking the status of women and people of color. We actually added that component in 2020. And then our 4th pillar is our career outreach. We believe that to advance women in commercial real estate, you have to have women. So we want more young women to see that as a career opportunity.
That's fantastic, Wendy. So, if you're out there listening and you have any interest in going into commercial real estate, this would be a great place to take a look. What is the website?
Our website is www.crewnetwork.org.
Yeah, www.crewnetwork.org. And also, if you're in commercial real estate and you're a woman, you should check it out because they are a great group of women, which I saw when I was there with them in St. Louis last summer. So, that is a global organization. It's quite large, and women helping women. We love that. I have a network myself of women helping women. And while we do all kinds of leaders on the program, both men and women, we certainly have a soft spot for advancing the state of women. So tell us, though, that's a great position to be in. You have an office in DC and also one in Kansas. And, that's a great position. But I want to know, how did you get there? So tell us a little bit about your path to this position.
So there's a little known thing called the association world. And I didn't know what it was. When I came out of college, I took myself off from my small rural town in Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C., thinking I'm going to be Barbara Walters. And it turned out that I really wasn't going to be Barbara Walters, but I ended up finding my very first job out of college at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And what I discovered was that there's this whole community of organizations that are professional associations or trade associations that represent industries as well as professions. And I ended up working for the Association for the Associations. And so I learned about all these organizations and all these groups that existed. And I had some of the best experiences with that group. I was there for 6 years. And I always laugh. It was like when I was so young and I was a sponge and I was just eager to learn everything and know everything. And so Greater Washington Society of Association Executives was the name of the organization. So it was just the Greater Washington Group. And so from there, I learned that there was this whole network of these organizations, and my career then took off from there. So it's funny because I can tell you, I've worked for, manufacturing association, healthcare distribution. I can tell you things about these areas that nobody would ever know, but it was my job. I was on the communication side, and it was my job to know as much as I could about whatever we were serving so I could communicate it. So I always say that in the end, I'm a true journalist. I know a little bit about a lot of things, but not a lot about anything. Until now, I would say commercial real estate women, I know a lot now. But yeah, so I've gone through my entire career, 35 years have been in these organizations in the Washington, D.C. market. And then what happened was I landed in a commercial real estate organization here in D.C. and called NAIOP, which was devoted to developers and developers, owners, and investors in commercial real estate. And I love the commercial real estate business. I think it's one of those career paths that few women or men know about. A lot of it was family-owned businesses passed down, and it is such a great opportunity to work in a community and develop and build things. And it really is creating community. So anyway, I was at NAOP and I got a call from a recruiter that said, hey, we have this job for a CEO for this women in commercial real estate. You have commercial real estate, you work in associations, we'd love for you to interview. And I said, the job sounds fantastic, but I'm not going to move to Lawrence, Kansas. I just am not going to do it. And they said, oh, just come and interview. We can talk about that later. And so I decided to go ahead and do the interview, and it went really well. And they asked me to come back for a second, and that went really well. And then they said, do you have any reservations? And I said, yes, I still am concerned about the staff being in Kansas and me being in DC. And they said, well, our previous CEO did that same commute for like 10 years. So that kind of relaxed me, like, okay, this has been done before. And so I said, you know what, maybe this is a moment. I should just take it. And I actually have to say, I have never looked back. It has been just the best decision I ever made. And even with any challenges I've faced, I say this to the membership a lot, is I knew I would like this job. I just didn't realize how passionate I would become about the women that I can see that it's making a difference for, So I feel very fortunate that I had the skills in the association world, the knowledge of commercial real estate, and the passion for advancing women.
Absolutely. So it's interesting because we do some work in the association world as well. And you're right, like it's a whole world of itself. It's where, for example, in commercial estate, so all these companies would join an association and they share resources, learn it, like you said, the leadership, the career stuff, other things like that. And so it's a great support for organizations.
You're right, Bonnie. Absolutely. It's this very robust and dynamic community of businesses. And we are businesses, even though we have tax exemption. So I always try to explain it for people, have you ever been to a doctor? Doctors belong to the American Medical Society. Have you ever been to physical therapy? There's an association, the American Physical Therapists Association. Have you ever bought a car? There's the Automobile Dealers Association. So for whatever thing in life you're doing, chances are there's an association that represents that and does training and development to make sure that you're getting the best medical care or the best car you can get. And so it is a really unique career path, if you will, and but very rewarding in so many ways.
Yes, and such an interesting world that you live in. So back up though. I want to hear the before all of this story. Where did you grow up, and how did you get there? Like, let's start way back at the farm girl.
Yeah. So you want the way back machine? Okay, we'll do the way back machine. So I grew up in a very small rural town in northwestern Pennsylvania called Johnsonburg, and it's kind of nestled in the Allegheny Mountains. And the town I grew up in, it had a population about 2,200 people. And the main industry there was a paper factory. And if anybody knows who's listening what paper factories are about, they smell really bad. And so one of my memories, and it sat right in the middle of town. So the main thoroughfare for trucking and all of that through our community was coming in through the paper factory. And so when we used to walk from one part of town to the other to go to softball games or go up to friends' houses, we would walk, and it smelled so bad that cars would drive through and they'd honk our horn and yell out their windows. And this is no lie, how do you people live here? And so I do remember that growing up, but I thought I had no idea what they're talking about, because when you live there, you don't know it. So primarily there were manufacturing industry and paper industry in this area, but also a lot of farmland. And I have to say, it's a beautiful place to grow up. I didn't appreciate it, as we don't when we're there, but I look back now and think about how many lessons I took from that, growing up in a place like that, and watching my father and whatnot. So my father worked in the paper factory, and but it was a very small community. And so there weren't a lot of role models. Barbara Walters, as I already mentioned, was one person that I saw. My mom was a homemaker. We had 6 kids in our family. It was just chaos all the time. And so we didn't really have businesswomen role models. But another story I really like to tell is that we did have a women's club. And the women's club would have a sponsor an art contest every year. And I don't know if I was probably in my junior or senior year of high school. And they said, it can be anything. It could be, music or craft or whatever. And so I was at the time taking home economics. And I know some people probably don't even remember
I
what
took
that was.
that. Yes,
Do you
I did.
remember?
I didn't like it. I decided I would take the boys version, which was, I think, what was it, ag or something like that. I
Wood
decided
shop,
it wasn't
wood shop.
very fun.
Which up. So
It was
for those
much
of you
more
who don't
fun to
know,
hang out with the boys.
yeah, I hear you. So home economics was to teach you how to be a homemaker, and which Bonnie and myself had no intention, but there we were. I had to do it, or I could have gone to wood shop, but I decided I wouldn't. So in home economics, and my mom, we didn't have a lot of money. We were just, kind of getting by. And I will remember times when we were on food stamps, like life was not easy, but I have to say, I don't remember ever being unhappy. I always felt loved and cared for. But my mom sewed a lot of our clothes. So I'm in home ec. My mom sewed, learning to sew in home ec. So I decided I was going to sew something and enter it in the women's club art contest. And you'll love this. I know you will. I made my very first business suit.
I do love that.
I will never forget. My mom took me to the fabric store. And we picked this beautiful blue linen material. She helped me pick the those little square or rectangle packages that the patterns came in. And I sewed my little heart out. And I was so proud of my blue linen business suit. And I'm thinking, I look back now and think, where did I get that? So maybe there was some premonition there of where I would end up. And
well, you were thinking you were going to be Barbara Walters.
Yes. Or somewhere in business. So anyway, I was the first person in my family to go to college. And, when you grow up with neither of my parents went to college, and neither of them actually graduated high school. So I didn't really have anybody to help guide me how to apply for college or what I needed to think about. But when I was a senior in high school, we did a program at St. Bonaventure University called International Day. And I was taking German in high school, and our German class went. And I thought, I love this place. I want to go to college here. But I felt like I needed to apply to other places. So I did apply. But I ended up going there, which was that was the first step in my feeling that if you work hard enough, which I worked very hard in high school. And I don't know when I realized it, that my only ticket out of that town was going to be an education. And so I knew I had to do really well. And so when I got into college, I couldn't have been happier. And I was all excited, I'm getting out of this one, I'm getting the heck out of Dodge. I'm getting out of this one horse town. And I go to college, and it's a small liberal arts college with about 2,200 students. So it's I moved from one small place to another. But to me, it felt big because it was something I had never experienced before. And while I was there, I studied communications. And, everybody went abroad. And I always joke that when everyone else was going to Florence or London, I chose to do a semester in Washington called Washington Semester to study politics, because I thought that would really help me in a broadcast career. So off I went.
Wait a second. That is sort of like a foreign country.
It is.
You have to admit.
For a little rural girl, I was scared to death. I mean, I literally parked my car at someone's house and did not get it out until I left. I took public transport. But you're absolutely right. People were worried about me. My mom's friends were like, "Are you sure you want to go to the big city?" And I thought, I've longed to live in the city my entire life. So yes, I want to go. But I ended up at American University for my semester abroad and studied political science. And it was a program that they sent 2 days a week were in an internship, and 3 days a week you were actually going out into study the different areas of government. So we did legislative, we did congressional, and we did executive. And so and we had this group leader, he was a professor that would set up appointments for us. So it was all about real-time learning in the congressional office or in the administration buildings. And so that was just again, an eye-opener. So then I go back to college to graduate, and I'm thinking, God, I got to get out of this one horse town. So it was, and then I moved to Washington right after college because I just loved DC so much. And St. Bonaventure, a lot of the students there were from New York City or Long Island. a lot of students from Buffalo and Rochester, and they all went back to their places. And I could have gone to New York, I guess, but I felt like I already figured out DC. So I had some grounding there. So I moved back. I didn't know anybody, or maybe I had one or two girlfriends that I had met in the Washington program that wanted to move back. So I came here and started pounding the pavement, knocking on doors. And that's how I ended up at the Chamber of Commerce, was just knocking on doors. But I'll tell you, when I graduated in the mid 80s, jobs were not fruitful. And I spent 6 months temping and working in retail to pay my bills because, I was telling someone this recently that we were talking about when I left home, my parents gave me $500 and a used car and said, good luck. They didn't have anything. They didn't know what I was going to. I didn't know. I had no clue. So you do what you have to do. And that's how I felt, was I knew that I had to do this because I could not stay there. And it's not because it was a bad place. I just needed to go out into the world myself. And
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So this is the reason I wanted you to tell your story, is because, it's easy for young women or young men, either one, to look at someone in your position and to think that you had a leg up, something easy, some open door that helped you get in there. And the truth is, a lot of times it was just really hard work. Yeah. And in fact, most of the time it was just really hard work, and you didn't come from money, and I didn't come from money, first of all, I went, like you said, from the small one-horse town to the small one-horse college. And when I got there, no one, even in my university, was going abroad. And so we weren't even doing that. We were going home to work on the farm on the weekends. And so, what you did was you saw that you had to get out, and then your brain and your vision, you started working on how to get out of there. So I love that part, because, we're real life, real leaders. That's the name of the podcast. And we want to talk about the real stuff, the behind the scenes stuff. And so that is, so I wanted to tell you that. And then I want you to also tell us, what are you most proud of? You've done all this hard work. And what are you proud of?
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you that, but I want to say something to the point you made about people look at you and think. There was a woman I went to college with, and we weren't good friends, but I ran into her in DC. I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And I feel like I had some success. I was the director or VP of something. And she looked at me and she goes, everything always worked out for you, didn't it? And I'm thinking, you have no idea how I have busted my butt and worked really hard to get where I am. But it dawned on me that people looking in go, oh, Wendy, you're so accomplished. You've gotten everything. But it's been hard work. So,
so that's hard. And I keep a plaque on my wall of Teddy Roosevelt and the Man in the Arena. So
talk about that. It's that is my husband's favorite quote, Bonnie.
Yes, it is. Actually, it is mine as well, because it's all about, getting through the difficult times. The Man in the Arena is the plaque I have on my wall. And here's what it says. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, or woman, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms and the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold, timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So that, I wanted to read that because, it's like when we're feeling beat up and we feel like everybody else has it easier, sometimes I'll talk to another human capital firm leader and they'll be like, we're having a great year. I'm like, I'm going to kick your ass. It's like, really? You're having, this is like 2020. We're like, no, there's no way you're having a great year. So
yeah, no, but I think that's true. Showing up and being willing to do the hard work and be in the arena every day, hammering away. I love that that's your favorite. It so resonates. If more people would read that and embrace that.
Absolutely. And when days are bad, I always say I'm having a man in the arena day.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me, like, you're going to keep getting up.
Yeah. Right. You'll get beat up, but at the end of it, you're going to keep going because it matters. So now I'll switch over to you had asked
the things you're proud of.
My things I'm proud of. Well, I have to say that I'm really proud of being where I'm at, leading the Crew Network organization, because I feel really fortunate that I get up with joy every day to do the work I do, because I know I'm making a difference for women in this industry. And I'll tell you, and you don't know this, but knowing how I got here and some of the challenges I've had in my professional life, and the wake up calls I've had, just knowing I'm here today, I'm so proud that I was able to become self-aware and address some of the barriers that I faced. So that I feel really strongly about the gift I've been given. And it's not that I didn't work for it, I did, but it's still a gift to me every day that I appreciate, because a lot of people can't get up every day and say, I love my job. I never thought I would be in this. You couldn't have told me. I mean, I envisioned myself as Barbara Walters, but being the CEO of a global organization representing women, I would have never thought that. But God, do I love it. It's just the best thing.
It is cool. And I'm proud of you too. That is a great accomplishment.
Thank you. I wish my dad were still alive. I would love for him to see.
I have that same feeling. Wish my dad could see too. But yes, I wish he could, because there's, it's better than Barbara Walters.
I'm going to go on record right now. I love Barbara Walters to this day, but this is better. This is so much more. So, yeah.
Oh, tell me, so you alluded to something, and I'd like to unpack that a little bit. So you said, not knowing sort of the things you went through to get here. Tell us about one of the hardest things that you went through, because again, it goes back to people are looking at you thinking you've got it all together, when behind the scenes, sometimes we're going through a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And so talk about that.
Well, so I got married what I consider very young. Most maybe people wouldn't, but I met my husband at 24. We got married at 26, and we had a baby at 27. And I'm a career woman, and I knew from even having children, I just knew I was going to keep working. And then I had a second child. So now I'm in my 30s. And I was so fortunate to have a really good job and support during those years where I was having children. So, we were like two people, with our hair on fire every day going, you drop off, I'll pick up. We got to get them to soccer. So I want the mothers out there to know. I had a young woman who worked for me once, and she said, I don't know how you do it. And I said, neither do I, because if I stopped to think about it, I probably wouldn't be able to. So I just keep going forward. And so I worked really hard all day long, and then I'd come home and I'd have to work again. And not, my pay was the joy. But so the thing that happened to me was I'm going along at this pace my whole entire career, working really hard and trying to do the best I can. And I get in a job that I love. I love the members. I love the mission. It was really a great organization. And there was a job came open that would have been a perfect next step for me. I was at the director level. I would have gone up to VP. And I really wanted the job so much, because it was an umbrella for all the skill sets I had to run this division. And I was passed over for the job. And I'll tell you, it was the most pain I've ever been in my professional career. And I was really a mess for a long time. And I couldn't, I remember that day, I didn't want to cry in front of the CEO telling me that I wasn't going to get this job. So I just kept my mouth shut. I didn't say a word. And at the end, and it was like 10, 15 minutes, but at the end, I just said, thank you for telling me. And I left. And I remember getting in my car and driving home and going to my dogs. I had 2 dogs at the time, and I just needed some comfort. And of course, I cried my eyes out. I was just shocked and sad and really disappointed. But I think that then, as the days went into weeks, I thought, like, what happened here? What happened to me in this situation where I felt like I was doing a really good job? People respected me. The members loved me. I thought that there were colleagues of mine that had my back, that supported me. And boy, I was wrong. I was wrong. And here's what it was is I was not self-aware enough at that point. And listen, it wasn't like I was 20 or 30. I was in my 40s and I didn't see what other people saw. I was technically very skilled. I got things done. I was great. I had vision, all of those things. But I was really, I had to do a deep dive on this. In fact, I always say I punished myself by staying there 3 more years. And I was hurt and unhappy. But I said to myself, if you don't figure out what you did that caused you to not get the promotion, then you're never going to be able to go where you need to go next. And so I did a deep dive, like a lot of soul searching. I spent a lot of time journaling and reflecting. And one of the things I think I may have told you this story before, but one of the things, if you've ever seen the movie High Fidelity with John Cusack, he owns a record store and a woman breaks up with him and he says, I can't figure this out until I go back and examine every relationship I had and what went wrong. And was it me or was it them? So I sort of did that. I went back to every job I had and started to examine, like really be honest with myself. And I think that's one of the things I tell people now, just be honest with yourself, because I wasn't. And the shame of it is not one CEO I worked for, and I started reporting to CEOs when I was 24, not one of them stopped and said, hey, you've got so many great qualities. Here's the thing you need to work on. I look back on that and I think some of them may have tried and I wasn't ready. But there was one critical CEO that he was a coward. I think now I look back and think he didn't have the guts to say something that could have changed things for me. So anyway, so I did my high fidelity journey through all of my past jobs. And I finally felt strong enough by the 3rd year after this I've assessed myself. I've tried to recalibrate and really become aware of how I was in a room. And there's another famous coaching thing that we use in coaching, and it's called getting on the balcony. And I started getting on the balcony in rooms where I needed to be seeing how I was landing on other people and how I was, I always say to people, I was raised in a family of 6. You said what was on your mind and everybody was like, oh, and went on. Well, that wasn't the case in the workplace. You had to be much more thoughtful about how you approached your situations. I wasn't politically astute. I wasn't self-aware. And I had to work on all of those things. I had to change me.
What is that getting on the balcony? Explain that.
Oh, so getting on the balcony is a coaching technique where you say people in the moment, when they're very emotional or reactive, they can't see what's happening around them. They aren't observing the body language of other people. They're not seeing how their own behavior is coming into that room. So it's like getting on, like pretend you're on a balcony looking down on that committee room or that board room or that meeting room. And what's really happening? What are the dynamics there? How are you coming off? What is the body language of other people? And what could you do differently to change whatever dynamic you're seeing that you're responsible for?
Yeah. So it's observing your own self and leadership. So, okay, that's a new tool. I hadn't heard the phrase like that. We do it too. We say, for the next 6 months, we really want you to observe your own leadership and really let's be studious and let's think about it. So that, I love this and I want to unpack a few things. Okay. But so first of all, I want to unpack the fact that when you received the shocking news, so you were blindsided. Mm-hmm. And that's actually what I want to call this podcast, because it's a book I want to write about getting blindsided, because it happens to all of us at some point. Mm-hmm. And so so you were blindsided, but what you did was held it together momentarily and said, thank you for telling me. So, when we get bad news and we're in shock, that is the best thing you can do, is give yourself space to get away from it, make sense out of it. We call that sense making, like let's spend some time unpacking it, which is what we did. And I love all of that. So, like when people, for example, if you don't get fired some point in your life, you probably haven't done a whole lot. So, if people come who are listening, if you get to a job and, you, for whatever reason, you get fired, the best thing you can do in that moment is say, I understand, shake hands and walk out the door and get yourself together. Because don't say anything else. You can come back and, negotiate or whatever later. But I love that you did that. The second thing I love that you did was this deep reflection about who you are and what caused you to get passed over? Because you could have done the blame game and just said, it's all you guys, you picked the wrong horse and you should have picked me. And, but you didn't. And it sounds like you came out better because of it.
Well, I will say this. For the first couple of weeks, I was really angry because, well, here's the other part of it I didn't tell you, but I did blame. The woman who got promoted was my peer. And I knew she didn't have that experience that I have. She didn't have the knowledge, and she was really good friends with the HR person. And she was nice, she was very nice, but she might not have been as effective. And what I learned in that moment was I blamed HR and their friendship. I blamed the CEO because he was going to take the nice person versus the skilled person. So I did a lot of blaming for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then I said, you know what? You're full of, you need to look at you and stop. And it didn't hurt. I'll be honest. It didn't hurt that my husband is a coach, an executive leadership coach.
No, that's a big bonus. But, let me just say something about what you're saying. So you were going through the stages of grief. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. But what is key in that moment is to keep your mouth shut. So, right. Like, don't go back and blame out loud, like as you're processing. Right. So, just for those who are like, if you get that shocking news, you might feel blame and anger in the beginning and probably will. That's part of the grieving process.
Yeah. Well, and they expected me to resign right away. And I made the decision. And I feel like I punished myself, but it had to be done, that I had to stay there and see my way through it. And I think that's the other point you're trying to make, is that, you can walk away, but if you walk away without really understanding what happened and what you contributed to that, I think that's sort of like, I realized my contributions to that situation, or that, being passed over. And I think it was monumental for me in my career going forward to understand, what I needed to do, because what is the thing is, everywhere you go, there you are.
Yes.
you have to own who you are. So it was huge.
It. And I'm thinking about what you're saying. I love how studious you are about yourself and about what you're trying to do. And it sounds like that may have been the best bed day of your life. Because you used it as a catalyst to get you into these higher level positions.
Yeah. And it broke my heart. I mean, I was really, like I said, I felt broken inside for a really long time. And don't make me cry, Barbara Walters, but I felt broken inside for a very long time. But I did that hard work. And that's what we're talking about, being in the arena. I did the hard work. And you know what happened to me? And this is the upside of the downside, right? I was sitting at my desk 3 years later, and I get a call from an executive recruiter that says, I have a CEO who likes to work with strong women. He's looking for a number 2. Are you interested? And that's how I moved on. So you know what? Things happen for a reason. And because I took that job, I got this job. So at the end of the day, I feel like it all works together, but it's because I was willing to look at me. And I think that's what I try to tell young women that I counsel is, it all starts with you and it all ends with you. And if I didn't live that, I probably wouldn't know that.
That is great advice. I was just thinking, you were reminding me of a Mike Tyson quote. He says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
That's perfect, Bonnie. That's so perfect. I was punched in the face. Yeah, that's great.
And we all go through things like that in our career. But, and I understand completely what you're saying about being heartbroken and really it tearing you up inside. Yeah. And so, just kudos for spending that time to get through the hard work. And now you'll have so much more to give to other women as well.
I think that's true. And, I have to say, I was torn up. And I think about that, like in the time I thought about it too, is so much of who I am is about what I do. And I don't know if other people listening to that feel like that, but I remember where I came from. Like I was going to go out and conquer the world. And you're telling me what? I'm not good enough to be in that role. It crushes you. And I feel like if I viewed it as a job and not a career, and I didn't have that need, it's about who I am too. So it wasn't just some job that I didn't get. It was about me. And so that's kind of that other part of being self-aware about yourself.
That's your identity. And
Yes.
you were at a fork in the road, and you could have easily went the other way, and that could have been your career staller, but you didn't. You did the hard work and took the road less traveled by.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that observation. That's good too. But yeah, so again, that things happen for a reason, and you might not know in the moment, but that was a gift that I didn't realize. Even now, it still pains me sometimes to think about it, but
Yes, I understand.
I couldn't be in a better place in my life. So
yes. Well, it's one of those things. It's like, it was a painful thing. It stays with you.
it
But
does.
first of all, thank you for sharing your story. I know this is going to help so many people. And I just want to wrap up with any advice that you would like to give to our listeners who are out there thinking about their own career, their own life, and how they might apply.
Well, and I learned this too from being at Crew and working with so many women in the commercial real estate industry is, we all think, and this can apply to men or women, but women tend to think, I'm going to put my head down, work really hard, and they're going to find me and promote me, and I'm going to get opportunity. So, I sort of feel like that's how I was. I wasn't paying attention to the politics. I wasn't paying attention to my relationships. So I would just say, keep your head up, look around you, pay attention, and do the good work. And don't give up. You have to keep pushing forward, even in the face of those difficult times. But I would also say, don't stay somewhere too long. Know when the time is right to move on. And for me, learning that lesson was staying there. And the other thing I would say finally, and this seems like maybe trite, but don't give up on yourself. It's easy sometimes to go, oh, I'm going to give up here. This is not working, but don't give up on yourself. Always believe in yourself. Even when other people don't, you have to know that there's something about you that's going to take you where you want to go. And having passion and commitment to that will carry you all the way.
Those are all three great pieces of advice. And, so one, I just want to comment on the first thing that you said. Women are really bad about not promoting themselves. They think they're going to get promoted because of their hard work, and will occasionally get passed over just because they didn't say, oh, hey, you should pick me. Mm-hmm. And I'm better than her or him. And, because here's why. So we're pretty bad about that. So that was a great point to bring up. And then not giving up on yourself. One of the things I tell people is have the 20, 30, 40 year plan, because that gives you a beacon in the distance. And when you're walking the path and all you can see in front of you is the big rock, that could stop you. But if you've got the 20, 30, 40 year plan, you're looking at it from a 30,000 foot view, and it's just a rock. We're going to go around it. Right. We're going to get there because that's not the plan. The plan's out there. So, the not giving up on yourself is huge.
Yeah.
Great advice.
It really is important. It's important. So, this has been a journey for sure, Bonnie. Like I said, I never thought I would be where I am, but this organization is going global. And I think about that little girl sitting in her bedroom in 8th grade, reading Harlequin romances, and thinking, I didn't know there was a big world, but those books took me places I thought I'd never go. And now here I am going to those places and thinking, gosh, I'm so fortunate. But I also know I came from, and you can probably relate to this. My dad taught me honor, integrity, respect, and own your stuff, own who you are, own your stuff. So those are things that you carry with you, no matter how far you go from your little one-horse town. And now that's why I say, I look back on that and know that growing up there has had a tremendous impact on my values and my morals. And I think that's equally as important.
Definitely. You have deep roots.
Deep roots. But my bouquet of my leaves and feathers and branches go out into the world. So that makes it okay.
It's a beautiful thing. It absolutely is. And you're a beautiful person. Thank you for all you're doing to advance the state of women in commercial real estate and otherwise. And it's just been an absolute joy having you on the program. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks for letting me share my story.
All right. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. We hope you come back next week. And we will have some links and things for you to check out on the website about this, so you can check out Crew Network. And we look forward to seeing you again.